Monster Hunter World and Iceborne defined an era, and its flagships told that story. The introduction of Monster Hunter's 5th generation took the world by storm, a complete revamp of visuals, storytelling, and of course, iconic new monsters. At the heart of this revolution lies two key Elder Dragons that sit comfortably on the cover art for both Monster Hunter World and Iceborne respectively, Nergigante and Velkhana. Join me in this brand new series where I'll be taking a deep dive into the history of Monster Hunter's flagship monsters. What's their origin, how did they impact the franchise, and what implications do they have on the games moving forward? Now, a flagship isn't just a mascot for the front cover of the games. They represent the beginning of a new hunter's journey and a new chapter in the franchise. Inevitably, we're going to face this threat head on, and from the moment you purchase the game, you're on your way to doing so. Whether you're a veteran player who's completed every entry to the series, or if you're picking up the games for the first time, both hunters share the same common ground that they have never hunted this monster before. After all, holding this position also means it's the flagship's introduction to the series too. Often these creatures represent the core theme, culture, or direction its respective game is attempting to progress toward. Rathalos, a red wyvern, sets the stage for what Monster Hunter is as the very first game. Nergigante ties nicely with the brand new underwater combat features, while the most recent flagship Arkveld represents the theme and story of wilds, linking to the cycle of life and the innate longing for freedom. Not one flagship lands itself on the cover by mistake. World and Iceborne were no exception to this rule. The 5th generation was Capcom's attempt to break out of the niche category it had found itself within here in the Western market. Bringing the series to multiple consoles and PC presented Capcom with more opportunity than ever before. With that came a brand new challenge. While previous generations of Monster Hunter are still loved by many to this day, something about them clearly isolated or prevented players at mass from truly diving in. So when it came to developing world, accessibility and a more aggressive Western approach was in order. And so the games took us to the New World, a place we could start from scratch. Despite this, the team still managed to hold on to its unique identity and charm that separates it from anything else in gaming. There's really nothing out there that quite feels like Monster Hunter. It was very important that this wasn't lost. And no monster quite embodies this sentiment than Nergigante. From the get-go, there is anomalous activity here in the New World. The bulk of our attention is directed towards Zora Magdaros, however this is later discovered to be only one piece to a much greater story unfolding in the background. In any case, these events cause a resurgence of activity with multiple other Elder Dragons too. But one common factor always persisted: Nergigante. And this begins leading us to the answer as to why this dragon found its place as the flagship for World. There is no difference between us the hunters and Nergigante. Our role is to preserve the balance in the ecosystem. We do this by identifying and eliminating anything that threatens it, whether that be an invasive species or a monster displaying erratic behaviour. No matter what lengths we need to go to, no matter how far we need to chase it, we ensure the balance is preserved. At first we placed Nergi in this same category. After all, an elder that almost exclusively hunts down other elders had never been observed. However, it ended up far deeper than this. I'll keep things short, but effectively, Xeno'jiiva and the later discovered Safi'jiiva were the root cause of this high influx of Elder Dragons, an event that caused major disruption in the New World. Before this point, Nergi had been rarely ever spotted, but now we see it far more frequently, and that's because hunting elders is part of its innate biological instinct. It seeks out high concentration of bioenergy within them. Consuming this energy allows Nergigante to regenerate the spikes found across its body, wounds from battle, and this is why we see it being able to go to such reckless lengths until it defeats its prey. It even goes a step further. From its spikes, it's able to reproduce without the need for a mate. Bioenergy is a prerequisite for this to be able to occur. Hypothetically, if a Nergigante fails to find and hunt down enough Elder Dragons, the species population will naturally begin to decline. On the contrary, an abundance of Elders would give life to more Nergi. But why am I telling you all this? Nergigante is the perfect example of how the world of Monster Hunter functions. The food chain has a hierarchy, and nature will always find its way to keep that balance. Without Nergi, Elder Dragons would have no natural predators in the world, and without Elder Dragons, Nergigante cannot survive. There was no better monster to teach this to the large influx of new 5th generation hunters. And again, we are the same as Nergi. We hunt down threats to the ends of the earth, we come back stronger if we fail, and without us, the balance becomes broken. That is Monster Hunter. Even going beyond this, even if we begin viewing things from a game design perspective, the Nergi hunt in itself and the mechanics the Elder Dragons show us require a player to understand the game at a fundamental level if they want to beat it. Truly think about this fight. Every game mechanic was squeezed in. Break parts for an advantage, fail to break parts for a disadvantage. Close range attacks are aggressive, but if you stand too far, long range hits start to kick in. Position based attacks that the player is able to identify via telegraphing. There's even an ultimate attack thrown in that includes a large scale AoE. Beating Nergi means you get it, and that you're ready to carry on forward to take on whatever else the game has to offer. And that segues us perfectly into Iceborne. With a whole new generation of Monster Hunter players now up to scratch, and already having the opportunity to polish their skills to the maximum, a brand new journey awaits. Iceborne introduced Master Rank to the game, a higher tier of difficulty that renders a hunter back to square one. Your perfect endgame base world set will now be rendered less than optimal in a few quests time. Paired with this also comes along more challenging monsters, including some powered up versions of familiar faces. Now we've beaten the rough and ready Nergigante, it's time for us to now face a more elegant and calculated challenge. Velkhana screams nobility. Its regal appearance pairs nicely with its commanding behaviour. In almost all aspects of its visual and mechanical design, she's the polar opposite to Nergi. Unlike earlier discussion, Velkhana plays almost no role in the story at all. She just happens to be riled up by the singing of Shara Ishvalda. That agitation causes her to become a threat. But that's fine. Remember at the start of the video when I mentioned how flagships carry their own unique purpose from a developer standpoint. The monster on the cover doesn't need to have crazy lore or a highly intricate role in the story. Monster Hunter in general isn't particularly good at doing that in the first place, and maybe that in itself is Velkhana's purpose. Simply put, here's a strong opponent. Her presence speaks for itself, her name needs little introduction. We have ventured into her territory and by all means she will defend it. If you're an active member of the Monster Hunter community, you'll know I couldn't make this video without talking to one particular person. And that person is Frost from Bake Nation. First off, I want to thank Frost for taking the time to provide his thoughts. You can find a link to his Twitter and joint YouTube channel down below. A lot of great points were brought to my attention via this reply. One being how Monster Hunter in general seems to put emphasis on the initial base game flagship being a more brutish, rugged monster, whereas the expansion tends to feature the more elegant. Look at Rise for example, brutish Magnamalo, regal Malzeno. We can't speak on a Wilds expansion yet, but Arkveld certainly could fit the former. On one hand, this ties very nicely into my earlier thoughts of training with Nergigante contrasted with mastering mechanics with Velkhana. But as pointed out by Frost, these are also two polarizing concepts by nature. An all-in aggressive Nergigante appeals to my personal taste, whereas the sleek, regal vibe draws in a whole nother type of person. Outside of just game mechanics, a flagship is also a pretty big part in selling you the game. To this day, how many of us look deeper into a game we've never heard of purely because the cover art looked cool? And by having these two drastically different designs, both championing the game, it might just be the difference in someone diving in for the first time. Part of a flagship's job is to be that one creature whose design instantly makes you think, yeah, I want to fight that. And as a flagship of the expansion, Velkhana had an even tougher role than Nergi. She wasn't there to introduce players to the world, she had to overwhelm them and prove a bigger challenge. And doing so would then make Iceborne feel bigger, colder, and far more intimidating than base game ever could. And in my opinion, Velkhana absolutely does this. She attacks relentlessly, switching between the elegant close range tail strikes and long range ice beams. The arena itself shifts around you in a sense with the icicles she drops down, and the ground freezing below. Ice walls erupt and block your movement as well as your line of sight, and all of this combines into giving you this feeling that you are in her arena, and she's going to implement attacks to force you into moving how she wants. But finally, when you manage to claim victory, it's going to feel far more rewarding than anything you had done in the game up to that point. And then there's her equipment, something I didn't even touch on with Nergi. Her unique set gives the skill Frostcraft, which was one of the first truly unique armor skills introduced in the 5th generation. It didn't just give you flat stat buffs or resistances, it completely changed the way you played the game. Building up power with each sheathed strike added this almost rhythmic and deliberate playstyle. which fits in perfectly with Iceborne's more methodical tone. To this day, Frostcraft Greatsword is one of my favourite builds. Even when you're done fighting Velkhana, her impact on the expansion continues to resonate and live on via this set. We do then have the additions of Ruiner Nergigante and Arc-Tempered variants for both. However, Ruiner technically isn't the same flagship monster, and the AT variations just continue to build on concepts we already covered here today. But moving forward, how might these two impact the future of Monster Hunter? Well, Velkhana already got its return in Sunbreak, once again bringing its Frostcraft skill with it. Nergigante, on the other hand, is yet to return, with him being somewhat tied to Elder Dragons, and whilst at the time of recording not having any in the game yet, the expansion would have to find some form of justification for it to make sense. In my opinion, it would be a huge missed opportunity not to throw both of them into the Wilds expansion. Hyping up world babies like myself by giving us our flagships would be such an easy sell. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below what these flagships mean to you. If this series continues, the next episode will likely be based on Rise and Sunbreak, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see that. Thanks for watching.